Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this month's instalment of ProductTank Brum. Thank you for joining us this evening, whether you're a ProductTank Brum local, whether you're a national or an international attendee. Great to see everyone saying hi in the chat. Please do feel free to chat in the conversation and post any questions into there as well. And so I'm Neve Jones, and I'm one of the ProductTank organisers at ProductTank Brum. And I'm really looking forward to this evening's event and introducing our speaker, Amon, who is the CEO and founder at Hyve. And before I hand over to Amon, I'm just going to go through a couple of slides to introduce ProductTank Brum. First off, we're using their new branding, their spanking new branding, which is very cool. So I'll take a moment to shout out to the team there for their awesome rebrand. As I said, any comments, any questions, please continue the conversation in the chat stream there. Of course, we'd normally be together, so if there is any conversation going on, please feel free to pop those into there. Also, as we go through Amon's talk, if there are any questions, he's more than happy to take those through the slides as well. So please feel free to add those in. And so some of you may be already familiar with ProductTank Brum, some of you may be pretty new. So what I wanted to do was first off introduce what ProductTank is. So ProductTank was set up over 10 years ago, so in 2010, by a group of product people who met regularly in a pub to talk all things product. And as product people, we tend to be, a bit of a lone wolf or a couple of product managers in a larger organization. And sometimes it can feel a little lonely. But ProductTank Brum has expanded and expanded. ProductTank, not just Brum, but ProductTank has expanded and it now operates in over 200 different cities across the world. So if you are back when we can travel, if you're in a city anywhere in the world looking to connect with product people, please do feel free to check those out. And the benefit of us all being virtual at the moment is lots of product tanks are streamed to YouTube, just like this one, so you can jump in anytime. And how does it work? We tend to make it informal, friendly. We have local speakers from our community, either folks that work in product or work with people in product too. We talk about our product highs, our product lows, our product woes, and we have a conversation and share our stories. And so with ProductTank, it is the Mind the Product meetup. And if you are looking to connect with a global professional network of product people, please do check out Mind the Product. They have jobs boards, they have a membership system, they have access to a blog that's full of tons of content. They've got a Slack channel, they've got a podcast, they've got all of the different types of content that you might want to consume. A wealth of resources there at your fingertips. So please do check that out if you're interested. So moving on to tonight's event. So I'm really excited for our talk this evening. Amon's talk is going to delve into how to develop a customer-centric mindset for product managers and why that's important. And this topic is particularly close to my heart, so I'm very excited for it, with my product experience being within the customer experience space as well. So introducing Amon, who is CEO and founder at Hyve. Amon's worked within the customer experience space for the last 10 years and is incredibly passionate about customer advocacy. I've had a sneak peek at the slide deck, so I will stop the delay so that we can jump straight through into Amon's talk. Just a quick background on Hyve. They're a customer advocacy platform that help brands turn happy customers into their advocates that drive revenue, drive acquisition, and retention also. And so with that, and no more spoilers, I will hand over to you, Amon.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Neve. As she's mentioned, my background is has been in the customer experience space, and as she said, I am deeply passionate about customer experience. When she asked me to speak, I actually thought about what is that one thing that I would want to share with other product managers. I've been attending Product Ram for almost 4 or 5 years now, and I love engaging with you guys, and I love the talks that are given. And I actually thought, let me share something that I'm deeply passionate about, and also get to hear some of your ideas in how you currently engage with customers, or some of the things that you currently do to get closer to your customers and build those relationships. As Neem mentioned, I run a company called Hyve, and it's a customer advocacy platform that helps that helps brands turn their happy customers into engaged advocates that spread positive word of mouth. I think in this day and age, we're living through a period of what we call a crisis of trust, where customers just do not trust brands anymore. And a lot of these brands, or the brands that are actually flying out there, like Gymshark and Monzo, they all kind of have this kind of deep innate focus into essentially engaging with their customers to grow their business. And where Hyve was born, actually, I've worked in the customer experience space, and my background actually is in computer science. I was in the dev team for a company called Rant and Rave based out in Coventry. And we actually help brands to essentially improve their customer experience, kind of very similar to Vox Pop Me. And one of the things that I found actually was that most of these brands actually worked really hard to save the customers who are really unhappy with their brands. And there's this question that brands ask: how likely would you recommend my business to your family and friends? And most of these brands actually just focused on their negative customer, or customers who've scored them 0 to 6, or people who are considered highly likely to go out there and speak negatively about the brand, and really didn't do anything with the promoters. And this is where the idea of Hyve was born, really. And actually, when we started, we were talking about love to share. How can we get to engage with the promoters who were saying, yes, I will recommend you to my friends? And most of these brands are just saying, yeah, thank you. And we thought, let's give them that opportunity to actually take that extra step to promote that brand. And as we delve deeper into trying to understand the psyche of what a customer advocate is, we actually found that there's this shift in loyalty after quite a few conversations with some customer experience directors, marketing directors. We actually found that there's this shift in loyalty that's happening, where we're moving away from this kind of transactional and rational way of thinking about loyalty, where if you think about Nectar points and Tesco Club Card points, that doesn't necessarily mean your customers are loyal to you. And we actually saw that this is actually moving towards a more of a relational and emotional way of loyalty, or what I see as kind of the true form of loyalty, where customers want to be part of a community. They really believe in that brand's values, purpose, vision, and mission. And they actually want to be hard and want to collaborate with those customers and build that level of trust and social proof that brand needs to grow. And in 2019, 2 years ago, actually, we had the chance to work to be part of the National Express innovation program. And we actually came up with a framework that would help, through collaboration with different teams within National Express, we actually came up with a framework that would help them kind of systemize customer advocacy or brand advocacy in their business. And we did a proof of concept just to see how that would work. And we actually came up with 4 ways, or kind of a 4-step process that would actually help embed that in their business, like where it's all about everyone in the company rowing in the same direction to create advocates out of their customers. And And it was surprising because National Express is not exactly the type of brand that you think like, oh, wow, this is I rave about National Express. But we found that actually most of their customers are deeply passionate, like they have that kind of deep connection with National Express as the only provider that would get them to see their loved ones. So that connection is something really strong that would actually get them to engage with that brand. And we found that number one is about finding out who your advocates are, in your customers, who your advocates, and then empowering those advocates to take acts of advocacy. And then it's about measuring it to see the return on investment to that brand, and then also rewarding those advocates for taking part or taking time out of their days to actually support your brand. And this talk is actually quite relevant to customer advocacy or customer centricity. And I actually thought about if you think about what process do customers go through to becoming advocates? It's deliberate effort across everyone in the company, anyone who's engaging with that brand, or a frontline customer, or a bus driver. It could be shop floor assistant. They're all they're all touch points into creating this customer, into making this customer to become an advocate for that brand. And that as well goes with product managers. We are the guys who are actually building kind of bringing forth their creative ideas in how to solve our customers' problems better. And in our talk today, we'll look at what customer centricity is. I actually found that there's kind of a knowledge gap in trying to understand what does it really mean to be customer centric, why is it important, and also just a few ideas into how we can actually get to become more customer centric. So, and I'll finish off with some questions, but I would actually urge you, please stop me if you've got any questions, and we can just have a conversation. I would love for this to be a two-way conversation where you guys can throw questions at me, and I can also just get to hear how you guys are approaching essentially engaging with your customers. So what is customer centricity? I found actually a few definitions out there, but when you boil it down to it, it's all about the company or the organization or the brand putting a specific focus around their customers, organizing, putting all their effort towards solving problems for their customers. So if you look at this, it's a strategy that aligns the company's product development around the current and future needs of a select set of customers. And it's important to know that not all your customers would be advocates, or not all your customers would actually put themselves forward. So it's for you as the person who's actually interfacing with the customer to actually take that step forward and ask that customer specifically, like, just what problems are you facing? What are you anticipating? What kind of fears have you got? What pain have you got? What are you looking to get out of our product? And also looking at essentially building a community of them that you can actually regularly go back to them. And when you look at customer centricity, it's not something that it's a tactical thing that you do, like you'll say, like, this month we're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's a mindset. It's how you approach everything. It's how you look at processes around how you serve your customers. You look at all the daily decisions, all the key decisions that are made around a company. Is it all in favor of the customer? And also thinking about the customer service. Are we delivering real value for your customers? And as I said, it's important to understand which select set of your customers that you can actually look at to engage deeply, to actually bring more value to the rest of the customers. It's that kind of 20-80 rule where you could say 20% of your customers have a deep relationship, deep, meaningful relationship with those customers, and that the value that you get from that kind of spills over to the rest of the 80%. And if you look at customers, when they join you or when they become part of your product or when they sign up as customers, they really don't know you, and they take time to get to know you. So they're critics at the start. They're onboarded onto your product, and they get some level of value. They repeat using your product, and actually they get to a point where they love your product and start recommending your product. And some of them actually are willing to step forward to speak on behalf of your product. And at the pinnacle of that, you could look at shareholders. These are people who are willing to actually put their money. So if you think about Monzo, customers who are willing to part with their money to actually invest in this bank, that they're essentially a digital bank. So if you look at those types of customers, they're at the very top or the pinnacle of what you call your customer advocates. And customer centricity, I see it as not just as one person, it's the entire organization. I think of it of people kind of rowing, and they're all pulling and pushing in the same direction. The analogy I like to use in this is the F1 team. Like if you look at an F1 team, so like actually F1 seasons back, you look at every engineer, they all have a part to play. And to make that car go faster, or to make that car reliable, efficient, or effective, and that it doesn't break down. And that's the kind of approach that we need to have. Like Ross Brown wrote a book about his main aim was just to make that car to go faster. And it's I would kind of look at it from, let's say, from our perspectives, is how can we bring more value to our customer, or how can we bring happiness to our customers? How can we make their lives better? How can we make our customers' lives better? And as I mentioned, it's important to understand what is customer centric, and I think a really good kind of differentiator is customer service. When you think about what people understand as customer service, and what's actually being truly customer centric. When you look at a customer centric company, the responsibility is on the entire organization. Whilst when you look at serving your customers, or just merely how do you approach engaging with those customers, you find that it's just the frontline staff who are the ones who are actually engaging with the customers. The key thing here is when you think about customer centricity, it's a proactive effort. It's intentional about understanding the needs of the customer. Whilst when you think about just serving your customers, it's only when the customers found a problem with your system, or customers got a question, it's the point that you react to engaging with that customer. And the main thing as well is to remember that customer centricity, it's a long-term play, and it's a long-term strategy where you take a strategic approach in delighting your customers. It's about creating a remarkable experience that would actually get those customers talking and spread word of mouth. And last but not least, it's important to understand it's about the mindset. It's a mindset in the organization to be customer centric. Everyone in the organization should have that mindset that we should be delivering more value to our customers. And when you look from a customer service perspective, it's all about just delivering. You could actually say delivering value, but when you think about going above and beyond, so if you think about companies like Gymshark, for example, we were just talking, is Gymshark a tech company or not? And actually, when you look at how it does not matter what technology is there, the technology is the product. And if you look at how they engage with their customers and how their customers rave about them, and the extent that they go to delight their customers, you could say that that's a truly customer-centric company. But also, it's good to see the distinction to distinguish between a product-centric company and a customer-centric company. I guess some of us here are product-focused, like B2C companies or B2B companies. It's also it's good to understand where you lie in that kind of spectrum of how engaged you are with your customer. So product-centric, I think we are actually quite good from a like software companies where we're actually quite in tune with our customers, but also just working in a software company, you actually find that they have one direction where it's all about get the best product for the customer. While when you think from a customer-centric mindset, it's finding the best solution for the customer. It's not about looking at making profit for the company. It's all about looking at creating more value, looking at how you can segment those customers, how you can best serve those customers. So if you think about customer success teams and how they engage with those customers. And when you look from a new product development perspective as well, when you think about just coming from my background in the customer experience space, you find that the salespeople and or the higher ups kind of push down requirements and say you need to build this or you need to build that, and actually you find that the people who are actually engaging with customers are the people who actually in tune with the customers, understand their needs and understand the pain that they go through. And that's why from a customer-centric type of company, the power is to the person who has most knowledge about that customer. And the main thing behind this, when you have that kind of mindset, your customers see it. And I always say, like, it's people talk to people, and you can actually empathize and actually see the level of effort that people put in to actually engage with you. The company I work for, you could see the relationship that the frontline staff really had with their customers. And people used to rave. The company was called Rant and Rave. And honestly, the customers really raved about the company itself. And what this does, it creates advocates. And as I say, like, everyone in the company has a role to play to create an advocate out of every customers, because they spend more. So when the company puts down the OKRs in terms of objectives, you always find growth is a key thing in there. And most of the time you do find that, because if you think about developers and people who are so that the gap between the customer and the developer is quite the gap between us too big, actually, that they don't actually get to engage with them. They don't get to see what the actual responsibility and how accountable they are to helping them grow that company beyond just writing code. And if you look at this stat, customers who are advocates for your brand, they spend twice as more. They probably cross-sell and upsell to new products. And when they actually go out there and speak on your behalf, that leads to about 200% growth in that brand or in that company or in that product. And it's really important to understand how you engage with these customers, because, as I said, there's kind of that spectrum of where your customers lie in that kind of advocacy spectrum, or how much they love you. And it's important to understand how best to engage with them. And I thought about adding this slide. This is a piece of research that was done by Forrester, where they got to really understand what are those kind of psychographic drivers that help you understand how best to engage. And they found 4 archetypes or 4 types of advocates. You've got educators. These are people, I would probably say, people who've got mobile phones or they download a new app. They're the type of people who would go around telling everyone, this is how you use this. And you could actually, in a software company, you could actually get one of your customers to be part of your advisory board, where they can actually be there to support other customers. That's one way you could leverage that kind of relationship with that customer. They are validators. These are people who are well spoken. They're fairly balanced. These are the type of people, if you want to buy a new car, if you think about buying a new car, if you want to buy a Tesla, you'll probably go to this person to say, what do you think about this car? Status seekers, from not from a negative connotation of a status seeker, but more of people who are willing to bring more value to their network. They are always out there raving about what something new that's just something that they've seen of value, and they want to actually pass it on to their network. And they've got this kind of altruistic aspect about themselves where they're about giving to others. And then collaborators, these are the people at the pinnacle of your kind of advocate pyramid, because they are the guys who are willing to take out time. These are the people you appoint to your customer advisory board. These are the customers who will come to your office on a random Thursday morning to come in, if you ask them to come in. And really, all of them can help you in multitude of ways. And I think the more direct thing to product is around innovation. You're constantly working on a roadmap. You want to be able to immediately tap into that insight of these guys who actually love you. And being customer centric, having identified who they are, it's really direct. You can just go directly to them and actually say, hi, Miss Customer or Mr. Customer, there is something we're working on that we think might be of interest to you. Would you be open to do this? And I know we do this as product people, but how consistent are we doing it? And most of these customers, when you engage with them, they actually spread word of mouth. And this is what leads to, when you think about word of mouth, what we do really is about breaking it down at Hyve. And we found actually there is a kind of a misunderstanding of how word of mouth spreads. And I found actually 6 things, just when I'm doing my research, I found that there's 6 things that happen, that need to happen to get word of mouth to spread. So if you think about your customers and how you engage with them, there are a few things. So like number 1 being social currency. As customers, they share things that make them look good. So if you think about how you engage, if you're a B2C brand, for example, and you're building an app, or you're like a Monzo or company, like, let's take Monzo as an example. When customers are out there saying like, oh, I helped develop that new feature, that gives them social currency. If you think about triggers, a good example that I've seen of triggers is from a marketing context, is about KitKat. So KitKat sells chocolate, but for them to get their product top of mind, they actually merged the concept of eating the chocolate bar with coffee. So whenever customers had coffee, they always thought of KitKat. And so even from our kind of products, it's important to also listen to what your customers are doing when they're using your product, the context, and that insight that you get when you listen to when you actually take a step back and listen to what your customers are saying, you can bring that insight as a product manager to the marketing team or to the guys who are doing strategy in terms of go-to market, and actually say that is a piece of insight that we found. And some of these things you might not think of it, but these are the kind of things that actually help the broader company beyond just your product. But also it's looking at emotions, when we care, we share, that kind of love, when positive emotion, negative emotions. Also looking at practical value. I'm going to touch on the kind of different types of value that customers can get out of your product, but also looking at public. How public is this? If you think about when I've been to some conferences where customers actually are there talking about the products on behalf of the company, but also stories. What kind of stories will your customers tell? What kind of stories will your customers tell other customers? So what role will you as a product manager, the kind of customer-facing person in the company, create a story, create a narrative, or create a story that customer would go and tell other customers, and that will actually help your company grow. So this is, before we get into some of the things that we can do, we did some research with Warwick Business School, and I thought I'd just drop this in terms of helping you to understand how, when you think about focusing on the customer, we found that there are 8 things that drive advocacy, that drive that kind of organic word of mouth. And number 1 is about making it easy for your customers. When we think about building our products, are we thinking about the whole entire journey? There's this example I use for 0 Moments of Truth, which is what's it called, Lego, and they think about the whole experience where the customer leaves their house and they're flying to New York. What are those touch points, and what opportunities are there for Lego to plug in the product or bring that experience in? And that goes with our product as well. It's about thinking about the whole experience, but it's also thinking about the relationship level. So if you look at the bottom there, you've got relationship level. You've got are you living in your brand values? Whenever I go to companies, you tend to see brand values kind of put on the walls, but I would say kind of maybe 40% of the time, of maybe 50-50, you probably find that people just say it but don't actually live it. And it's important when you're actually engaging with your customers, when you're speaking with your customers, it's important for you to live or to embody those values that your brand, because when a customer is engaging with you, they're engaging with you as a person, but at the same time, you're the interface to the customer. But also looking at making those customers feel special. And these are things that we can do as product managers, and thinking about, again, can you go above and beyond into making that customer feel that they've been heard? Every customer wants to be heard, but also looking at personalities as well. When we talk about the different types of advocates, it's important to understand which customer would be able to do X, Y, and Z, and which customer would be able to help come speak to our developers if that's something that you want to do in terms of bringing that customer into the development environment. So I wanted to touch on 4 things that I feel that as product managers we need to be able to tap into to understand how to be more customer centric. And the number 1 thing is about understanding that end-to-end experience. And there's this kind of model that we use in marketing around understanding the kind of customer journey that a customer goes through. And if you're a B2C product, you might be a B2B product. Probably some people in this talk are product marketing managers. It's about understanding, prioritizing your customers' motivation and needs at all stage of your planning and execution. So if you think about a customer buying your products, owning your products, and then advocating for your products, they go through different stages, and it's important to understand how your product plugs in at every stage. And this is the main thing with this is that most brands kind of do the buying side of things. I guess most product managers mostly think about the owning side of things because that's where they use the product. But most people forget about the last thing, which is when your customers love you, what else can you do with them? What else can you leverage that love to actually help your products become better, but also help other customers find that value that they're getting. And at every stage, it's so important to understand at every customer touch point or where they interface with your product, it's important to understand how those customers are thinking, how they're feeling, and how they're doing. As I said, customer centricity, it's all about, it's a deliberate effort to step into the customer's shoes. And when you think about empathy, the other day I was talking about empathy with one of my friends, and sometimes we use that word lightly. And when you actually deeply feel something, when a customer, so if you think about the value proposition mapping that people do when they think about jobs to be done, what jobs are the customers doing, what kind of pains are they going through, and what kind of gains are they trying to get. You know, when you step into it and ask the right questions and try and tap into what is that customer thinking in that context, how are they feeling? You know, what else in the environment is affecting them in terms of how they're using your product, and also what are they doing at that point in time as well. And being able to tap into that emotion is so important for us as product people, because we could end up becoming quite analytical with how we approach things, but it's also so important to think about the emotion side of things. A company that does this very well, I think, it's Amazon. I think I was talking to a client, and I actually gave him an example. If Amazon was to basically say we're not in the UK anymore, there would be an uproar, really. Like, people would complain if they decide to leave the UK. And the reason why they've managed to create that level of need or that level of kind of affinity to the brand is because they are obsessed with their customers. I personally love Jeff Bezos, really, because I went back and watched some of his videos from back in the day when they started, and you can see that deep focus on their customers, where they actually go to the point where they actually say they want to make it so cheap that even the desks, the tables that they sit on, they recycle them or something like that. But also, when you look at Amazon as a company, they're all about focusing on the results. And you could see that with their fulfillment centers, the kind of products they bring to us, like Alexa and all these things. And some of the products have worked, some of them have failed. But one thing that they actually say is that it's all about resisting proxies. When you think about, they actually go to the extent of saying when they have meetings, they have a chair empty for the customer to that the empty chair represents the customer. And I feel that's a really good kind of call to action, to actually, when people are making decisions in the room, they're thinking of the customer who's sat in there. But also, they go about embracing external trends. And when you think about us over the last year, a lot of companies have had to adapt to everything that's happened through this kind of lockdown and the crisis that's happened and continue to happen. It's about embracing external trends. This could be something that you're forced into, but also you could see like subcultures. I'm actually doing some research on subcultures, and I found actually that these are the kind of the products of the future coming from the little subcultures that are people who love, like if you think about Complex as an example, if you think about Supreme and all these things, they all started as subcultures and now they're massive companies. And I like this quote from Steve Jobs, where they say people don't know what they want until you show it to them. Some people use this as a way of just trying to kind of skip the customer, but Apple have a very, if you think about a customer centric company, these guys thought about the future of how their customers would be using technology. They were deeply curious about looking at how are the current products actually failing, and what's the possibilities of what could happen in the future, and they went and built it for them. And for me, I can't see that's the epitome of what a customer centric company is. The next thing is teams. It's important to build a team. I think about kind of a superstar team would be of a product manager, a product owner, a scrum master, software developer, QA engineer, UX lead, and this, I believe most companies now have kind of come to a point where they have kind of all these elements in the team. But the important thing is that you need to bring other people that are not naturally in that environment. When I was at Rant and Rave, sometimes I used to invite the customer success leads to come in and speak, and sometimes they would be silent, but most of the time they would actually speak up and say, oh, that customer would really like that, and this is the current scenario that they would use that. And that was some piece of insight that you would never get if we were just a development team building that product. It gives insight into what the customer would like or would not like. And the important thing is to look at it from having that all those elements, kind of soft skills and also skill sets in that kind of cross-functional team. It's important to understand the different roles that diversity plays into that. When you think about diversity of thought, diversity of the experiences that they're having with the customer, it kind of brings a new way of looking at problems and how you solve those problems. And that leads to kind of that novelty aspect. It's about coming up with new solutions to problems, and when you have a more diverse team, in terms, so if you think about customer success lead, they would come with a perspective that other people within the team would have not seen. And there's that element that everyone in the team needs to be deeply curious about what each and every one, the ideas that are being brought to the fold. From that point, you also want to see everyone's perspective to make sure that you actually deeply listen. You're actually listening to what other team members are saying. But the last thing, it's about making sure that you give everyone a voice. I've been in teams where you find somebody would never speak because they're probably seen as maybe a developer who just, their role, maybe as a contractor, their role is just to execute. But these guys are highly intelligent, and they can bring value that, and when you give them a voice, they can actually bring a different perspective to how you solve those problems. The third thing is process. And I think we're very lucky that over the last kind of 10 years, Agile has really taken off. I talk about Agile in marketing when I talk to marketing people and customer experience people. And one thing I found we have these principles, things that guide us. I see them as almost like, think about like law of gravity or whatever. These principles should guide us to becoming more customer centric. When you think about individuals and interactions over processes and tools, the language that we use, the words that we use when you communicate really does matter. When you think about let's focus on our bit and moving from let's focus on what we're doing and then pass it on to the DevOps team who will deploy the new features, and the customer service team will worry about dealing with those problems and then if there are any bugs, they can bring it back to us. Well, and moving from that kind of talk or that kind of conversation to more, let's get our heads together and deliver the best solution and experience for our customers. If you think about customer collaboration over contract negotiation, we're living in a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and really ambiguous world that needs us to be truly agile. We need to move beyond. I know most of the time we do like roadmaps and we think about user stories and we plan a few sprints ahead and things like that. But it's also important to understand that things can change, context can change really quickly, and we need to be able to essentially like be proactive enough to react to it. But also it's also thinking about working. If you think about working software over comprehensive documentation, when I first started my development career, we used to have like very long specifications, and it really took a lot out of us. And when we even started working, we found that most of the time we had to like just scan those requirement specifications. And obviously things have changed, but we still have that sort of hinged mentality from the past. And it's important to understand it's moving towards if it delivers meaningful value and works for our customers, then it's success. It's about redefining what success truly is for our customers. The last thing we need to think about to becoming more customer centric is about tapping into that customer insight. And I think as product people, we tend to fall into that kind of analytics side of things, and we could probably, which is good actually, looking at data and trying to understand what's actually been said. But it's important to understand that data alone will not give us the answers. And the truth really kind of lies between the conversations that you're having with your customers and the data that they're giving you. Because to make to understand the real insight behind it, it's important to look at what the customer is saying, look at the data, and then use your intuition to actually understand what the best way forward or best solution to solve those problems. And this goes to understanding the value that customers bring, or the value that your products can bring to your customers. Most of the time, I think we tend to focus on the bottom. If you think about if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you think about the kind of the safety concerns and leading all the way to self-actualization. It's the same with the elements of value that we can bring to our customers. If you think about the functional aspect, it's looking at how can you take out the hassle, reduce the effort that your customers are going through. But it's important to also understand how we can start tapping into the emotional side of things. When you think about what your customers are thinking, feeling and doing, and what they truly care about, you start unlocking value points that would help you beat competition. Because if you're delivering value that actually brings about a social impact that would actually make your customers look good in front of their friends, that will spread that word of mouth, and that's what creates real advocates for your business. And when it comes to having conversations with our customers, it's really important to understand how we can get the most out of those conversations. And I think the number one thing we need to do is figure out what you don't know about those customers, and then decide what counts, and then going to ask those customers what they want. The main thing is, when we talk to customers, we tend to go in with a mindset of, already I've got something I need to tell you. Whilst that's quite good, it's important to also think about what do I know about this customer, and then aim to understand how you can use the insight that you've gained to help you bring more, essentially arm you with more information on how you can solve that problem for them. Another thing is about asking big and broad questions. Sometimes asking customers direct questions can really kind of box you into kind of yes/no answers sometimes. And it's important to just have a conversation like conversations like you'd have with a friend. And that's where it goes to the last point, which is it's about aiming to learn more about them. Treat them like your friend, and take the opportunity to get to know them beyond, to know them as people. People buy from people. People like people, and we actually gravitate towards people who feel like are friendly to us. I like this example. Like I'll give you a good example. So before we were doing Hyve, before we embarked on this journey on Hyve, we used to be a customer experience and technology agency where we used to build software for companies in the education sector. And most of the time when I used to run those workshops, I used to just have a conversation with them, and I would get into the conversation and would start talking, and get to a point where we'd be like, oh, should we start? And I would actually say, we've already started. You know, it's about making your customers feel so comfortable to have those conversations that they actually they actually feel part, they feel like they're not being directed, and they feel like they're part of that conversation in terms of finding solutions for them. And in summary, the main thing that we need to know is about knowing your customers. Make sure that you solve a problem for them. You go about understanding what the jobs are, the pains are, the gains are. There's a book on value proposition mapping. I really love it. They've got so many examples into how you can actually come up with problems, but also it's good to understand how customers think. Over the last 2 years, I've fallen in love with psychology and how the kind of biases that exist, because the more you understand about the biases that customers have, I actually see them as kind of mental barriers that come in the way of giving you the information that you need. When you understand them at that level, you can use that insight to solve problems for them. It's also good to understand that when you're doing this, you need to be consistent with it. You can't just have a conversation with a customer once and then completely forget them until the next quarter when you need to talk to them. It's about keeping that conversation. It's about treating them as friends, but also make sure you measure the results of the engagement that you're having with your customers. Understand which customers brought value. Keep tabs of who they are, so that you can actually have more meaningful conversations with them. You know. So at Hyve, I welcome most of your any question that you have. But at Hyve, we always talk about it's about real customers telling real stories. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Amon. So I absolutely love that last sort of quote, or the story you were telling of being in that conversation with a customer and them saying, oh, should we start sometime soon? And then you know, we have started. It's about that two-way conversation. It's not just, you know, question, answer. Yeah, I really like that. Had a quick question around, and I didn't know whether this was a potential controversial question, but thought I'd throw it in anyway.
Yeah.
So where you used Amazon as the example of the customer centricity, and, you know, completely agree with you, and what sort of Jeff Bezos has done there is really put the customer at the heart of everything. Like, how can we make it the best value, or get it there the quickest or the most convenient? Yeah. I wondered whether you had any thoughts on sort of the employee engagement side and the employee advocacy, and how that plays into customer centricity within there too.
I think there's one thing I actually posted on LinkedIn this week about, it was Martin Lewis saying that he will always score 5 for all customer surveys because most of his companies dock their employees' pay. You know, some of his behaviors actually are quite toxic for employees. And there's a quote by Richard Branson when they say, like, when you look after your employees, they look after your business. But that is one thing that Amazon have kind of dropped the ball on. And I remember 2 years ago, last year or something like that, or 2 years ago or something. What's the name of the Sanders, Bernie Sanders was pressuring Jeff Bezos to like increase their pay, and he did it. You know, like, it was kind of like, why did you not do it before? But it's important to look after your employees, because if you look after your employees, you create that environment where they feel like they need to be there. Because I think as founders or people who are running companies, you should be hiring your employees for them to fire you, really. It's about empowering them to become the best versions of themselves. Like in my company, if you remember those 5 things that you could do, the diversity aspect of it, the novelty, the authenticity, the perspective, those are actually the values of my company now. When I had interns last year, they came in and it was all about empowering them to discover who they are and not making them to kind of conform to like what they think they should act. And it's empowering them because there's a quote by one of the CEOs of Pixar where he said that when you're truly yourself, it's like a superpower. So it's about empowering your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that and completely agree. And I think it is something, it feels like it's probably going to change with some of those big organizations where it does become part and parcel of that customer centricity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we've had a question through from Matt, and he asks, what do you suggest as the first step in shifting from a customer service or product-centric organization to a customer-centric organization?
I think the first step actually is, again, mapping that customer journey. When you map that customer journey and really see the huge gaps that are there where you sign up. So where you sign up a customer and you never talk to them for until they're about to basically churn. When you map that customer journey and then think about what they're thinking, feeling, and doing at every stage, and actually use that as an opportunity to engage with that customer, that I feel that's step number 1, by understanding that. And then now you can now look at opportunities that you could use to actually engage with those customers. At Hyve, we have what we call our 3 C's of collaboration. The first C is community. And it's important to understand that your community doesn't necessarily need to be a forum. It could be that one-to-one relationship that you can have with that customer, and understanding what things can you do with a customer to make them feel part of something bigger. Do you remember that? I don't know if my slides are still showing.
Yeah, they're still up.
So if you look at this, there's a bit here in terms of life-changing value that you can bring to a customer. When you make a customer feel like they're part of something bigger, they feel like they belong to something. That is value that you're bringing to a customer. So understanding that community aspect of it, but also looking at crowdsourcing. So that's the next C. When about crowdsourcing ideas, always tapping into your customers. So I use what's it called? Prodpad. Sorry. I use Prodpad, and I love it because I always have conversations, even when a sales call has gone wrong, and which happens because I've got better at it, but I actually use it as a point of conversation. What ideas do you have? And then you find that conversations start coming. And I remember in February, somebody who I felt like the sale had basically gone sent me an email. I had this idea. What you say, so it's interesting. But the last thing is co-creating. So co-creation from a perspective, that's the last C, where you actually start co-creating. You can co-create features, you can get them to generate content for you and things like that. If you're product marketing, if you're in the product marketing side of things.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks very much, Amon. So I know we're sort of coming up to time here. So if anyone does have any other sorts of questions, feel free to shoot them in, and we will pop those over to Amon. But what I'll do is I'll pull your screen down, Amon, and I will pop this one up just to finish off here. So join us next time. So next month, at the end of April, we'll be holding another virtual ProductTank Brum. And this time we are inviting Koli Kawan of Product Maestro. She's providing us with a unique opportunity to run a storyteller mini class, which All sounds very exciting. So we're going to be running this live for our ProductTank Brum attendees. And within this, we are going to be learning all about different storyteller types, how we're assessing our audiences, so our customers, and how we can leverage storytelling and our storytelling types to be able to deliver powerful stories, whether that's within product marketing, and so on. And we're also going to have a lightning speaker during this event as well. So the event will be published later on this week, and more info to follow on that. And so with that, we will close off for today. I see a couple of folks are having to shoot off. So thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate you joining us virtually for this. And yeah, please do get in touch if you would like to speak, if you've got any comments, if you've got any questions on the talk this evening, or any other talks that we've had with ProductTank Brum. But other than that, a huge thank you to Amon for your time this evening. Absolutely fantastic talk, and I'm sure the community took a lot away from that, because I know I certainly did. Awesome. Right, I'll close off here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.